obligations. I will be leading on his behalf. Thank you. Welcome. I appreciate you all for taking your time to spend this time with us. And I will turn it over to Steve, who will run our agenda. Welcome again, everyone.
Good afternoon, Madam President. I've got the agenda up on screen here. As always, the public, anyone who's been made aware of this by our public posting, can watch on Facebook or our YouTube channels. And I'll scroll down through the items as we go. So these are public comment rules, which are always made available with our packets. And then moving on to the first item, which is approval of the meeting minutes from the previous meeting, which was August 31st, 2020.
We'll give everyone just a few seconds to quickly peruse them, and then I will call for a motion for their acceptance.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the minutes from August 31st.
Thank you, Director Carroll. Thank you, Steve. All in favor of approving the minutes from our last Finance Committee meeting on August 31st of 2020, answer with aye.
Aye.
I apologize. I forgot to ask if there was any inclusions or discussion or any additions or edits. My apologies. All right, so let me call for that again. Let me do it properly. All in favor of accepting the minutes from our last Finance Committee meeting, August 31st of 2020, please answer aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the meeting minutes are accepted and approved. Thank you.
Recommendation is to review this with the help of City Chief and Foundation Chief Finance Officer Steve Asenzi, and to approve it for inclusion in the Finance Committee's report to the board at the next meeting. So with that, I'll linger.
Steve, you cut out.
Hear me?
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Oh, where did you lose me? I'm sorry.
Just for, I think you're about to turn it over.
Well, I can linger here for a moment, and then I'll scroll down and hand it over to CFO Vicenzi. So. Steve, I believe it's up to you. I'll just move past the cover page here.
Yep, go to the first page of the report here. Obviously fairly limited in our scope and size of investments at this point. It was a pretty decent third quarter with an increase of 4.1 million to the endowment, or 4.8%, and that's net of all manager fees. The return gross of manager fees is 5%, and the return year to date has been 10.6%. So we're having a pretty good year with when we got invested and having the endowment raise up here. Let's continue to the next page here. Oh, keep going up to the pie chart. There we go. Again, we only have two funds right now, an equity fund and a bond fund. Steve, if you want to scroll down just a little bit. If you look at where the asset classes are, right about the middle of the page on the left-hand section, you'll see where our policy is to be at about 50-50 split between the equity and fixed income funds. One thing I would like to just fill the board in on here or the committee, is that the investment subcommittee did approve a new threshold for hard rebalancing. Previously, if we ever got more than 5% out of policy, we would then rebalance to get back within policy. They updated that to be now 3%. So looking forward to the next quarter. If it hasn't corrected itself already, we will be doing a rebalancing to get within 3% of that 50-50 split. So just kind of wanted to share that for everyone's knowledge. Continuing on, like I said, there's not a whole lot of detail to jump into just because the funds are set and they're just kind of doing what they do. I really would like to skip to, it's called page 10 of 24. I know it's probably page 10 of your packet in total. This just kind of summarizes the return month to month and the 3 months, the most recent 3 months, and in total since inception. You see a little bit up and down in the market there, especially in September. But overall, again, good returns, gross of fees, 5% plan return for this quarter. So again, just a good solid quarter for us. Continuing through, not much I need to get into in the next couple of pages. I think I'd like to actually skip down to the expense report, just to kind of highlight that, since this would be, I believe, our first more detailed expense report. So you can see here where we have the consulting fees for the year. They did all come out in this quarter because we were doing a catch up now that everything's been settled. And we can also see the monthly fees from Jennison, which is our fixed income fund. What you don't see here is any fees from BlackRock, the equity fund. At the time, at the end of the quarter, we were still setting up to have them be able to automatically process those through through the redemption process, so we don't have to be cutting them a separate check. Just for everyone's knowledge, those fees will be around $2,500 per quarter. And so as you can see here, depending on the size of the investment and the type of fund, this is some of those fees that we had been budgeting for they look very big, but you still see the return net of fees, still very strong, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing here. And really, if we want to continue through, we can see the cash flow report, just another way to look at our assets over the first couple of quarters here and how they've grown.
2 pieces here.
Nope, sorry. So there's a general cash flows up top here, and the second part is cash flows inclusion of investment activity. So just kind of another way to look at how the fund is operating. And I guess, just leaving that here, does anyone have any questions on the report?
Nope. Just when are we going to get more money? That's all.
We can't hear you, Steve.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I will go back up to the agenda item, and the requested action is that this report is approved for inclusion in the Finance Committee's report to the full board at the subsequent meeting, which would be at this point in 2021.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved by Director Washington. Welcome, Director Washington. Thank you for being here today.
Support.
Thank you.
Supported as it has been moved and properly supported. Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor of the recommended action that the Finance Committee approve for the inclusion of the Finance Committee report to the board at our next subsequent meeting. All in favor, answer with aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thanks all. And thank you, Mr. Vicenzi. Can't hear you, Steve. Looks like you're still muted.
Steve, do you want me to take this one?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the special headset that I was given so that everyone could hear me has apparently failed me. So jump off that and Appreciate your understanding. The final item we have today is, or excuse me, the next item we have today is review of 2 candidates for the investment subcommittee. Now, Madam President and Finance Committee, this has a little bit of background to share, which is that the Finance Foundation for Excellence Investment Subcommittee, which was created by the Finance Committee, as you can see in the background here, and then constituted with particular members, had at that time a vacancy and has subsequently had a resignation of, actually, I believe its longest standing member. So that created 2 openings, and the investment subcommittee then went about the process that they've used as long as I think they've been around, which is to go through the eligibility criteria, which are listed here, and to do outreach and gauge interest, and then to come up with a slate of possible and then a slate of recommended new candidates. Now, the primary challenge is that since this body simultaneously works with the city, the county, the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, the Foundation for Excellence, that as a matter of due diligence and to avoid conflicts of interest, whoever's on the FFEIS can't be a member or have a stake in those organizations. So that's, you can understand, removes quite a number of people from the potential running. They had a slate of 5 outstanding candidates, and they've made 2 recommendations. You can see under the recommendations here, Joshua I. Sledge, along with term information that I can describe a little bit more in detail on a subsequent slide, and Nick Griffith. Their resumes are uploaded and they were included in the packet, so we can scroll down to those in a moment. I did want to note that since this is the first time Finance Committee has looked at new candidates, that we perceive this as being sort of a 2-meeting item, which is pretty common at City Commission and even the board level, so that you could review now. And of course, if you wanted to, could go ahead and recommend, or rather appoint these members, but wanted to create that space where if more time is needed or if there are follow-up questions, and just with respect to the fact that this is the first action of its kind, wanted to offer a 2-meeting approach. So in that case, the recommendation would be really actually to just schedule an appointment at the subsequent meeting, if that was so desired. So a further point to note is that because in order to make sure that terms are staggered, there are, and I'll skip down here to the current membership, the terms are staggered between what are called Class A and B. And so you can see those expire on different years. And then I'll jump back up to the item itself. So we've put here Class A, which would expire in 2024 if appointed, and then Class B would expire in 2023 to keep that staggering essentially happening. I will move to the resumes, and Joshua Sledge is first. I'll note too, I've removed contact information for privacy, and then each of these gentlemen was informed by email of that fact and that we would be discussing their candidacy and credentials today at a public meeting, and they both responded with awareness to that fact. So this is pretty straightforward as a resume. I thought of particular interest was, I guess if Clyde were here, the University of Michigan alumnus status, but in all seriousness, the employment in the Center for Financial Services Innovation, which is a really interesting background that would bring a lot of skill and insight to the board or to the investment subcommittee that's not there. And so that's his background involves essentially an equity banking lens. So looking at people who maybe have historically not been involved in financial institutions, and that entire area of banking and economics. I'll scroll down here to additional experience.
So Steve, I'm not sure I know this individual. Are they local?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I thought that he's working in Chicago.
That's what I see, but does he live in this community?
That was going to be my first question. Is I was under the assumption that candidates would be local candidates. Is that not the case? But you're saying he is local.
Well, I think in the modern economy, probably maybe you could say a foot in both worlds, with commuting as well. But there is a local address, yes.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see the address. Thank you.
And without going into detail that I can't speak to, I do know that the family is known locally as well.
Yeah, I recognize the name for sure.
Okay, so he's not an implant from somewhere else, so we're borrowing knowledge, if you will, for local affairs. He's known and has spent time and grown up perhaps in the area. His family connection and ties here.
My understanding, family ties, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I do want to step in and share here that of the 5 candidates, local ties were very important to the committee's recommendation. So I do know that they heavily considered that portion.
Yeah, I almost thought it was imperative that they were. So that would be kind of news to me that someone outside the community probably could come in. So thank you. I'm glad that they checked that out.
What's the racial makeup, Steve, of the candidates?
There were, to my understanding, there's one female candidate, 4 male candidates, of which 2 were African American, and one of the final recommendations is African American, which would diversify the current FFEIS board.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was a conversation. I attended one of their meetings some time ago, and I was really curious about the recruitment process, and I'm always concerned when people say, well, we look to who we know and see. And that wasn't necessarily the process with that investment committee, but I was certainly holding for it and hoping that it wasn't, because we know that typically we look for people who look like us that are in our inner circle. And I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be space and room for a diversity of thought, not necessarily just ethnically. So that's good to hear that those intentions were received. I think that the investment subcommittee is like the heartbeat of the fundraising piece of FFE, which, to Director Washington's point is so important. And so I like your idea of really just taking our time with this and not rushing through the process and having a 2-meeting approach so that we can sit with these candidates and read more. I took a cursory glance, but I wasn't able to spend as much time on them as I would have liked to. So I would certainly recommend and underscore your recommendation for us to follow up, confirm, finalize, if you will, everything on a subsequent meeting. What does the group think?
So Steve, if one of the organizations you mentioned that are part of the RIC votes no, what does that mean? Or do we all vote, I guess, the organizations that are represented?
Yep, each organization does formalize their committee members. If for some reason one organization were not to vote on a member, that member would then have to step out at that meeting. I haven't had to go into detailed conversations on the investment subcommittee's desire. I know their overall desire is to have the same committee for all 4 entities that are involved. Just it helps them with their consistency, and it just it just makes things a lot easier for them to have one committee that can continue through.
Okay, thanks.
Director Carroll, you're going to speak?
Yeah, I do think we need to schedule the action at the next meeting, just for transparency purposes and make sure that people have had time to see the information that's posted. But I just wanted to say I really am impressed with this candidate's background with low and moderate income family households. I think that'll be very, very good to have that experience.
I agree. He's on the board of CASA, it looks like.
And communities and schools. So I did get a chance to look that up. And then while I think I do know this individual now, we got more connections than you could shake a stick at. So he does look like there's a number of things that are here, but I'm just doing a little more due diligence. But I'm talking for Joshua.
Thank you, Director Washington. Agreed. I agree completely. Not with the shaking the stick at, because I still don't, I'm not sure who he is, but everything else.
Right.
I will jump to Nick's resume, and again, contact information removed for privacy, and also he was also informed of the meeting. And he is, you can see under professional experience, currently, as was the outgoing member on the Western Michigan University Endowment Management, in the Endowment Management Department. And I'll pause here and then scroll down.
What is this candidate's name again, did you say, Steve?
You're talking about Nick?
Nick Griffin, yeah, Griffith.
Steve, where will these resumes be available? How will they be available to us?
These are in the packet that was, so it's in the packet that's on the agenda website. So this is all public and has been since, I believe, Thursday of last week. And then the packet is sent to you.
Okay, I knew it. I knew I'd seen it. I just couldn't remember where.
So really, at this point, I would frame it this way: is that, you know, discussion. We can spend time on this, but there's no action recommended. So if there seems to be agreement on that two meeting approach, then the scheduling doesn't, I don't think, require action per se. It would just be on your agenda for the next meeting. And
You've gone out again, Steve.
can't hear me? Oh no.
Now I can.
Now.
Okay. Well, I have to rely on the viewing public to know that I didn't have a mute symbol in my screen corner. So whatever's going on is beyond control. I apologize. Is that the item would appear at your next meeting the same, except there'd be a recommended action to approve. But no actions required here because it's entirely in your ability to just.
Sounds good.
With that, I'm happy to move on to the next item if so requested.
Yes, please.
Okay. And item D1 under regular agenda. This is familiar. This is annual business of the Foundation for Excellence Finance Committee. And this is to begin the annual reporting, independent audit, and tax filing processes. So these are the duties of the Finance Committee under Section 6 of the bylaws. And those duties are laid out in section 4.18. They're listed here. We've made a habit now of listing them just to keep that transparency from beginning to end. And with this action today, it really just creates that launch point for these processes for staff to go ahead and engage the auditor and to undertake all those processes. We typically have provided an interim report at a finance committee. So that would be, in this case, probably February, if there's any major updates. And then the items are prepared for a finance committee to approve and then to send on to the April annual board meeting, where they're ultimately adopted as the official annual process of the Foundation for Excellence. Very, very important part of what we do. One of the foundations of the integrity and sustainability and transparency of the foundation. One thing I'll add here is that there's a policy adopted by the board to review the auditor every 3 years. This is the last of those 3 years. So of course it's well within the responsibility or however you like to phrase that of the board to seek a new auditor at any point. We've been pleased with our working relationship, and so staff just sees that next year we would bring that up for renewed scrutiny, just to make sure that we're abiding the policy of every 3 years assessing the auditor to make sure that we're getting the best service in that point of transparency that we possibly can. So, and I'll scroll down here. I believe there's a statement of good governance, but really the scope of the work is here under background. And happy to answer any questions. Myself and Steve V can answer any questions you may have.
Looks good.
Nothing from me. I'm good.
Right.
Me as well. So we can't hear you again.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe it's we can go with the recommended action under recommendation.
Do you need a motion then to proceed?
That's been the precedent, yeah. Yes.
I move that we authorize the staff to proceed with the annual financial reporting, independent audit, and tax filing processes.
Support.
Thank you. As the motion has been properly moved and supported, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all.
Madam President, with that, I will ask, I believe Andy is on the line, if there are any public comments that were logged.
There are no comments at this time.
Thank you, Andy. With that, Madam President, we are on item F, board member comments.
Any comments?
None for me.
None for me. Just glad to see the report, the organization, and it's exciting to see things grow. I know it takes time, but it's nice to see how something gets added each time as we continue to establish this. So thank you for that. Thank you to staff for all of your work throughout the year, and hope that everyone can have a safe and healthy and enjoyable rest of the year as we go into the new one. And hopefully 2021 is a little different.
Yes.
Indeed. Thank you, Director Washington. Well said. You speak for all of us. Thank you so much for your words, and happy holidays to all of you in whatever way you choose to celebrate and acknowledge them, and stay healthy and safe. Our family has been hit repeatedly with loss. So my thoughts and prayers are, and I'm sure we're not unique in that in this day and age. So my prayers and thoughts are with all of you. Thank you for the time you take out of your busy day and schedules to be with us. And those of you who have been ill, I'm so glad to see you back and smiling and happy. And many thanks for all you do. And thank you for allowing me to lead you in this capacity on today. If there are no other board member comments, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Support.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Take care and happy
You
holidays.
too.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.